Well, I'm glad. We came roaring back yesterday. I hope you saw some of it on the No Spin News and on News Nation. I am going to play a substantial clip from my chat with Leland Vittert. Now, early this morning, I heard from the FBI, and we launched some pretty tough questions at the Bureau. They should be having press conferences in Washington saying, look, this is our investigation. This is what we're looking at in Minnesota on both sides. On both sides. We don't need silence anymore. American people need to know what is being investigated and why. Irresponsible jerks in the media are convicting Trump people all over the place, but what else is new? And then right-wing people, Trump supporters, many of them, just ignore any kind of situation that's going south. Neither of that serves your interest. We do. Okay. So the Talking Points memo continues our ICE Minnesota coverage. Donald Trump held a 2-hour meeting with Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem. Noem is under fire. The reason she is because she puts out statements too early after disasters like the shootings take place. Okay? She knee-jerks it. And then when videotape shows X or Y or Z, then she's looked upon as not credible. Ms. Noem should just slow it down. Okay? I am very adamant that any wrongdoing in this situation has to be investigated. But that's the key word, investigated. Not by some guy sitting in his living room watching CNN. That's insane. Okay. Now, I don't know what came out of that 2-hour meeting, but I don't think Ms. Noem is going to get fired, which is what the left wants. I don't think that President Trump is going to go in with a hatchet. What he will do is try to calm things down, as he should. And that's what I said. Now, the Department of Justice is investigating. We know that. And that's, of course, the FBI. But it's not transparent, as they say. I hate the word, but we don't know what they're investigating. Subpoenas have been issued for Governor Walz of Minnesota, but we don't know what the details of the subpoena are. And we should. And a subpoena has been issued to Mayor Fry. Now, we do know that he is now required to appear in U.S. District Court, Minneapolis, February 3rd at 9 a.m. in the morning. That's when he has to show up. Okay. So they're both under investigation. And we assume for insurrection stuff or impeding federal agents. But again, we should know. It is very important. Now, part of the investigation is whether the authorities in Minnesota actively blocked federal law from being laid out. You can't do that. Okay? On the other side, we don't know. ICE can't investigate ICE. The FBI's got to go in with an elite unit, as I said yesterday, to see what happened, to see if some of those agents, Border Patrol 1, ICE with the woman, did something they should not have done. That's fair. Now, Kash Patel is the director of the FBI. We invite him on this program. Nah, come on. Press conferences? No. He did appear with Maria Bartiromo on Fox on Sunday. Roll that.
But how was he threatening Border Patrol? You've collected the evidence, you said, right? You have the handgun in your possession?
That's right.
And how was he using that handgun in terms of threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
That's something that I will let the DHS and the prosecutors, because they are the ones investigating that case. I don't want to stylize that evidence, but I trust the men and women on the ground who are trained professionals to only use it when it's absolutely necessary. And I trust Secretary Noem's leadership and DHS and HSI to do the right thing, as they've always done in these scenarios.
Okay. And then that was a responsible statement. You got to back your guys. but you're on a partisan network Sunday morning. What good does that do? What good does that do, Mr. Patel? Have a press conference or come on this program, because this program goes all over the world. And whatever you say is going to be, everybody will hear it. All right. Now, there are three kinds of people in America vis-a-vis accumulating knowledge about stories. There are three kinds. There are you, who wouldn't be sitting here listening to me unless you wanted facts, because that's what we do. Facts. Then there are millions of Americans, but it's a dwindling crew that want to hear their own opinions reinforced. They go to cable and network news, because that's what those people specialize in, telling you what you want to hear. And then there are perhaps the majority of Americans who don't consume any news. They don't know anything. And they hear stuff. You know, their friends say things, but they have no frame of reference at all. But they vote. They vote. And they form opinions, uneducated opinions, but they form them. Now, we have been fabulously successful here for 9 years. And we have a very good staff, hardworking people, and we're smart and honest. But I have to reach a different audience, okay, what they call a linear audience on television. Okay, we are on television too, on the first and all of that. But scheduled television, I've got to reach those people. So I go on News Nation, which is not a network that is pandering to anybody. It's not. Last night, I had a very interesting discussion with Leland Vittert. Go.
Trump has clearly changed his worldview over the weekend. How would you characterize it? Backing down, strategic pause, pivot? What's happening?
Well, he wants to stop the madness. Donald Trump knows this is no good for anybody. And he will. He's going to make a deal with Walls. I don't know what the deal will be. But the most important part of this for News Nation viewers isn't about the individual politicians. It's about the misreporting of this story in the totality. There are two different stories here. The first story is the violence against the two people who are dead. There should be an FBI task force in Minneapolis right now, right this moment. I don't know if there is one because Kash Patel has not held a press conference. Where is the FBI director? Where? You can't have Homeland Security investigate Homeland Security. You can't. Why do we have the FBI? You have so many potential crimes in the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. The only bureau who could do it would be the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Where are they? Where is Kash Patel? All right? You can debate videotape all day long. You can say whatever you want to say, but there has to be an overriding authority in this state. And there isn't. Did you see, Leland, and because you've been studying it like I have, one Minneapolis police officer protecting ICE against the demonstrators? Did you see one?
No, but that's not the FBI's job to investigate
The answer is no. The answer is no. You didn't see one because there wasn't one there. And this is a public safety issue with dead people. No local or state cops. None. By order of the governor and the mayor. That is insane.
Well,
Now,
that may
those
be
men,
insane, Bill, but you want Kash Patel to investigate the governor because he didn't order the police to protect ICE?
You bet I do.
That's the solution?
You bet not protecting ICE. If the FBI comes in and finds that the agents, the federal agents, one ICE, one Border Patrol, all right, were derelict in their duties or used malice, I want those people indicted. Clear? Are we clear? But on the same token, you have got two elected officials that could be charged with rebellion and insurrection under the U.S. Code 2383. This is a rebellion. That is why the people are dead. Nobody brings a gun, a loaded gun, nobody, CNN, to a confrontation with federal agents who are under siege. No one does that. That man did. Because, in my opinion, he was so crazed by the situation, so agitated, as I am right now, that he had lost all judgment. Now, listen to me. The authorities, governor, mayor, feds, have to control that. The controlling bureau is the FBI, not Homeland Security. They're doing what they're ordered to do. Find and detain people who should not be here.
Okay. You write, who is the modern John C. Calhoun about Walls, a despicable South Carolina senator who actually wanted the Civil War to happen? Do you think Walls wants the Civil War to happen and therefore should be arrested as though he was a Southern governor or something in the early or late 1850s?
I think there is evidence that should be examined, and you might be able to charge Walls with insurrection under the. You want me to read it to you? I got it right here. It fits Walls.
Would that be good for America?
I don't care. Look, anarchy is the worst thing that could happen. The worst. Right now, in this present moment, de-escalation is the best thing that can happen. So Holman meeting with Fry has my 100% endorsement. Walls calling Trump, vice versa, 100%. But that doesn't excuse what has happened and is happening, which is a rebellion against the United States law passed by Congress, by a state under the governance of Walls and a city where Fry runs. Look, if you continue, and I say you in a general sense, to allow states and cities to not enforce federal law, you don't have a country. It goes. Okay? Everybody should understand.
So then why is Trump
now, here's the second part of the story. He's not backing down. He's trying to defuse. Why would you say he was backing down? You want a CNN contract? He's not backing down. He's diffusing the way he should. Now, here's the most important part of this whole thing, unreported, okay? There is a man in Shanghai, China, an American citizen. His name is Neville Roy Singham. He works with the Beijing government. He is funneling millions of dollars into the United States of America through 501s like Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, Minnesota Immigration Rights Action Committee. There he is, okay? Connecticut-born, 71 years old, billionaire tech guy. He is funneling money here to these radical organizations who are then agitating professional people, communists mostly, because Singham's a communist, all right, to go in and foster rebellion. You heard that story reported? That is absolutely true. The man has been investigated by the FBI in the past, this Singham character, okay? This isn't some organic thing. This is a foreign power, Beijing, using this American citizen who lives openly in Shanghai in luxury, knowing that this man is funneling tens of millions, probably more, into this country to try to destroy the government. What the deuce is that? Where are you, New York Times? All right? That's the second part of the story. There's a local federal story, and there's the international story. And I've had it. You don't like what I'm saying? Blank you, because I'm telling you the truth. And this has got to stop and be exposed across the board. No more sanctuary states and cities. No more of this insurrection. It stops. And federal agents keep the gun in the holster unless you can't. Not I might. Got it, everybody?
Okay. We actually had somebody on. We've been following the Neville Roy Singham story. January 6th, this is the Free Press reporter who's been working on it. Take a listen.
Neville Roy Singham, he's a tech millionaire. He's also a Marxist, and he has very close ties to part of the propaganda machine of the Chinese Communist Party. And from 2017 to 2022, we were able to trace at least $20 million that was funneled into the People's Forum.
So
And that's the guy
why
behind
don't you
this
think
protest.
the FBI... Right. Why don't you think the FBI has indicted him or any of the people who are being paid, who are actually in the United States in these protests or in this resistance movement?
I don't know. I don't know where Kash Patel is. He should have a press conference tomorrow. I don't know. All I know is I'm a journalist and I'm telling you the truth. I am sick and tired of false reporting based on ideology, of pie in the sky garbage, of people like Whoopi Goldberg accusing agents of murder. How dare you? How dare you? What about due process, Miss Goldberg? And Disney knows that's going to happen. Knows it and puts it on. I'm fed up with it.
Okay. Where does this go from here? Betting odds right now, who will be the first to leave Trump's cabinet? Kristi Noem, 40%, Pam Bondi, 19%. Kash Patel isn't in the cabinet, so he's not there. Where does this story go, Bill?
It's up to President Trump to reorganize this whole immigration crackdown. That the executive branch has to reorganize it. And the president knows that. Okay? And I know he'll reorganize it. But at this point, it would be cheap shot for me, who isn't in the meetings, doesn't know the dynamic, okay, to say, well, Noam should go or this one should go. Americans can hold an opinion on it. But I'm a fact-based guy. I don't have enough information there. And I don't have enough information to convict Walls or Fry either. But there's certainly grounds for them to be investigated on the Insurrection Act, both of them. And there are grounds to investigate the ICE and Border Patrol agents who pull the trigger. Those investigations should be transparent. Patel should be holding weekly press conferences, and it should begin this week. All right, so I think we covered it all. And we're deeply involved now and invested in this case. Not going to go away. And that's a memo. Right, joining us now is a reporter who's investigated this. He's way ahead of the story. His name is Jerry Dunleavy. He works for Just for the News. That's John Solomon's organization. And he has been on this case a lot. So what I'm interested in is why the federal government hasn't exposed this character, Neville Roy Singham. Why isn't this guy known by everybody?
It's a great mystery. I think that you have a very good Foreign Agents Registration Act case against Neville Roy Singham, just given his close connections to the Chinese Communist Party and his political activities here in the United States, which are universally pro-communist. And that might sound a little bit out there, a little bit extreme, but that is in the words of Neville Roy Singham himself and the words of the groups that he is helping fund. And that's everything from the People's Forum, which is based in Manhattan, but really has a national reach. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is excellent at organizing protests and demonstrations nationwide. And I just encourage viewers, next time you see one of these demonstrations, whether it's pro-Palestine a few months ago or whether it's anti-ICE now, keep an eye out for the signs in those protests. Undoubtedly, you're going to see that a huge number of those signs are put together by the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They're very organized. These groups are. Code Pink, which we've all heard of, is also roped into this Singham network. Neville Roy Singham is actually married to the co-founder of Code Pink, Jody Evans, and Answer, which is a 2-decade-old organization, Act Now, to Stop War and End Racism, Answer, the Answer Coalition, is also very closely linked. These groups share money, they share resources, they share personnel. And Neville Royce Singham has also helped to fund, it's called Breakthrough News. You've probably never heard of it, but if you go and search for it, you're going to see that the videos by this group get hundreds of thousands, millions of views. And pretty much this group's purpose seems to be promoting the work of all of the other groups that I just mentioned and promoting the actions they take and the protests that they do. So Singham has put together a very sophisticated network here. They're able to spin up protests and demonstrations and actions pretty much anywhere in the U.S. that they want pretty quickly. And
Jerry, do they pay people to show up and cause mayhem?
It's an excellent question. And that's the sort of thing that you would hope the FBI is looking into. What I can say is that these groups have a professional demonstrator side, absolutely. So they do have people that are getting paid. Obviously, the executives and leaders of these groups who are often out there leading the protests and demonstrations. Then they have their members themselves. And then wherever they go, whatever the city they're descending on, they link up with the local groups, the local Democratic Socialists of America group, the local communist groups.
Right. And they have the databases and they share the information and emails of these people who are interested in overthrowing the government. Is Beijing, in your opinion, is there any evidence to back it, in bed with this Singham guy? And is this an attempt by a foreign nation to undermine the United States?
It does appear that Singham, his office in Shanghai is co-located with a Chinese state media operation. So just right there, you have not just a sort of ideological link or a financial link, but a physical link between Singham and
that's very circumstantial, but it's very powerful. What about the Trump administration not getting out? You would assume, because the FBI has investigated the Singham, our Justice Department knows about him. He's on the radar, to use a cliche. But there is no attempt that I can see from the president on down to get the story out.
Congress has been pushing for the Justice Department and the FBI to investigate Singham and his network for years now, first during the Biden administration and continuing now. If there's an investigation happening, it is an invisible one at the moment, which investigations often are, but no investigation is also invisible. So we don't know for sure. Congress.
I don't understand it. I don't. Because this is a huge part of this, not only in Minnesota, because these people, as you pointed out, they go everywhere. They're organizing now in New York City. 4,000 they have signed up to go disrupt ICE when they come in here looking for criminal migrants. And it's an enormous story. We understand why the left-wing press ignores it. You understand that. They don't want any part of this. What they want to do is blame and harm the Trump administration. That's it. That's what they're in business to do. But the right-wing media, they haven't grasped the story either. I haven't seen it. Last word.
I will say that I've done probably a couple dozen stories now on the Singham Network, and the more that I look into it, the more connections you see to other groups, the more sophisticated you see the operation is. A shutdown effort, a strike effort in Minneapolis that happened on Friday seems to have been at least in large part, organized by the Singham Network. They're trying to have that be sort of a nationwide effort this Friday. Of course, this is all aimed at anti-ICE operations now, but months ago, this network was focused on anti-Israel and pro-Palestine protests.
No, they just want to disrupt and create as much chaos as possible. All right, you can reach Jerry Reed's stuff at justthenews.com. And we appreciate, Jerry. We'll check in with you, regularly now because I'm not letting this story go. Thank you very much. Final thought. So I told you yesterday that we were going to get a lot of social media off what I said on News Nation and on the No Spin News, and we did. Now, one of the websites that follows the media is Mediaite, Mediaite. I know all the guys over there, and they're fair. Sometimes they have to be goated to be fair, and they're left-wing primarily. This is their headline. Bill O'Reilly flips out when News Nation host says Trump is backing down, trying to get a CNN contract. Now, did I flip out? Let me know if I flipped out. I thought I was passionate, but I didn't think I flipped out. I was rational, I think articulate, and I gave Leo a little jab. He looks forward to that on the CNN line. But this is social media. That's what it is. Okay. I'm just glad we're getting the word out here. Because media, I did put up the whole interview. Some people, obviously who live on social media can see it. And that's what we want. Thank you for watching and listening to the No Spin News. And Bill O'Reilly, will see you tomorrow. That idiot who attacked Congressman Omar last night with some kind of liquid stuff, I hope he goes to prison. I hope he goes to prison. I mean, we got to stop this stuff. And I don't know what was in that. I'm trying to figure out what this is all about. She's okay. But we're not getting a lot of good news reporting out of Minneapolis on the situation. But anyway, we're on it. And I have no use for Ilhan Omar, but you can't be doing this. And her bodyguards and security should have, whacked that guy way before he got close to her. So most of the morning I spent interacting with the FBI. They're not investigating me. They're investigating everything in Minnesota. And I want them to tell me and you what they are actually doing. So we are making headway there. We have their attention. That is for sure. And I got to be diplomatic here. You know me, I'm not really a diplomatic guy. And I understand that they can't run out and give specifics about investigations that are underway. But at this point in history, we need to know what the deuce is going on as far as the Justice Department is concerned in Minneapolis. You have to tell us exactly what you're looking at, but you got to give us an overview. And I think we're going to get it. So that's what we did today. Talking Points memo is, I don't think the media cares about Alex Preddy, the man shot to death on Saturday, 37-year-old nurse. You think the media cares about him at all? I think they're using a dead man to try to damage the Trump administration. That's what I think they're doing. I don't care about him. And I'm going to make my case right now. So Border Patrol agents were attempting to detain a woman on Saturday in Minneapolis when Preddy came upon the scene and tried to interfere. He was carrying a loaded weapon, as you know. That alone is insane. Wasn't the first time. Now, we have not been able to confirm this ourselves, but CNN is reporting that Preddy did it another time and had his ribs broken, in a fracas with federal agents. This is CNN reporting it, not me. I haven't been able to confirm that yet. Anyway, Preddy, despite being a nurse and all that, was a very militant activist. That's who he was. That doesn't mean he should be dead, but let's be honest about the situation, okay? Now, during the struggle, federal agent said a number of times, he's got a gun. Those are the words uttered. Preddy had a cell phone in his hand, a gun under his cloak. And he wound up being shot 10 times. And he's dead. Okay. Horrible. Everybody, any sane person acknowledges that. But as I said yesterday, Mr. Preddy brought the tragedy, the end of his life, on himself. You do not bring a loaded weapon to a law enforcement operation confronting agents, local, state, federal, doesn't matter. You do not do that. That's known as cop, suicide by cop, to do that. He did it. And you would know it by listening to much of the American media. Roll the tape.
It meant that you saw testimonials from people who knew Alex Preddy, who could confirm that he was a literal choir boy and an ICU nurse. It meant that you saw videos of Alex Preddy in a VA, giving that moving speech, the last rite, to one of his patients.
No, that may be true, but that's not the story. The story is you do not bring loaded weapons to confront peace officers. That's the story. And every media should be telling it so that this won't happen again. You don't bring a car and try to block police operations. You don't do these things. But that's not what you hear from the media. No. You hear insane stuff like, Preddy had a right to be carrying that gun. What? Are you insane? It makes me so angry. Here are two really terrible statements. Roll it.
Carrying a weapon into places when you are legally carrying that becomes like anywhere you go. And the birth of the Second Amendment was about the people being able to protect themselves in case the government was to turn on them.
FBI Director Kash Patel said on Sunday that he kind of had to walk back yesterday because that he had a permit. He was allowed to carry that weapon. It was perfectly legal for him to have it, according to the police chief there in Minneapolis.
Are you insane? These are just stupid people. All right, it's legal for him to carry it, and he carries it into a police confrontation? And you're somehow trying to justify that? And the other one on The View says that, the Second Amendment is to protect us from the government when you sought out a confrontation? You injected yourself into a dangerous situation? These people are so irresponsible. So I'm the editor at ABC News. She's gone. Gone. All right? I have to have people with some kind of level of intelligence. CNN's hopeless. You can't rehab it. You can't do anything with it. It's a hopeless thing. All they do is we want to get Trump. Every day, every way. All right. So summing up, the responsible American citizen understands that things have to be brought under control in Minneapolis. I know as a journalist that the hate Trump movement, destroy Trump, is far more concerned with doing that than protecting Alex Preddy or Ms. Good or anybody else. I know that. They would rather people die. If they can get Trump, it's fine. And that's the memo. All right, now yesterday and Monday, we gave you a pretty solid informational flow on a guy who is funding a lot of this professional demonstration, violent demonstration. His name is Neville Roy Singham. He's a billionaire tech guy, lives in Shanghai, China. He works with the Chinese government. And he has a 501(c) in the United States called Breakthrough News, where he funnels money to places like the People's Forum in New York City and Minnesota radical left organizations. He's deeply involved with the insurgency and the sedition against the federal government, this guy. And we gave you all the information. He's a communist guy. Now, I didn't know this, and I don't think many other people do, but the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Jason Smith of Missouri, has been looking at this whole situation for a while. All right? And he certainly knows about the guy and everything else that's going on. He joins us now from Washington, D.C. I didn't even know about this story, Congressman, and I'm pretty on it here. Tell us a little bit about what you found out so far.
You know, Bill, it's great to be with you, but it's very disturbing. We have been investigating 501cs and nonprofits since I become chairman. And both in the Biden administration and now in the Trump administration, we have called for the tax exempt status of 11 different 501cs to be revoked because of how they've been funding terrorism, how they've been funding civil unrest. And the People's Forum that you mentioned is one of those that we called both administrations to revoke because of the money trail, the money that's coming in from the CCP that's helping with creating chaos and discourse in the United States is absolutely unacceptable, Bill. It's illegal. If for foreign money to come into elections, it should be illegal with this foreign money coming in and creating chaos
and they're killing
disruptions.
People. They're killing people. People are dying. Tell me about when you say CCP, that's the communist government. So everybody knows what you're talking about. So Neville Roy Singham seems to be the kingpin here. He's the face. Works with the Xi government. I don't think he can come to the United States. I think they'd arrest him if he did. But he's married to the founder of Code Pink, who's another radical organization. Tell me about him.
No, like Roy Singham is as close to the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, as any American possibly can. And his wife, as you mentioned, was one of the main funders of Code Pink to continue with creating chaos throughout the United States. This is something that apparently is their mission, their drive. It's what we're looking into, but it's unacceptable that they're able to transfer money into tax-exempt entities and basically be subsidized to create this chaos.
Now, who would stop that? The Justice Department?
It would be both. The IRS and Treasury can revoke their tax-exempt status,
so Besson,
and also the Justice Department.
Have you talked to Besson?
After.
Have you talked to him?
We have.
Does he know? Does he know what's going on?
He absolutely does know. We actually sent him an official letter on October 7th of last year calling for these 11 entities to lose their tax-exempt status, including the People's Forum, and we laid out tons of evidence.
But he didn't move on it. He didn't move on it.
He hasn't yet, but I'm going to be meeting with the CEO of the IRS in the next 10 days on this very topic because I think it's super important and I think the evidence is very clear.
Oh, absolutely.
Right before our eyes.
Will you come back after that meeting on this program? And if I can make a call or two on your behalf, be happy to. Because look, nobody is doubting the information that you've assembled. Nobody is doubting that Neville Roy Singham and the Chinese government are pumping money into the United States to destabilize the federal government, and violence is occurring because of it. Nobody is challenging it. It's not a he said, she said. Now, the media blacks it out. Has the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times called you for anything?
No, very few
Okay, so they're not interested.
Are paying attention.
Right, they're not interested. Democratic Party interested? Anybody on your committee?
They haven't been helpful so far. We have been trying to go after foreign influence of the communist Chinese party in putting dollars into 501cs, and they have not been cooperative yet. I'm hoping that they will see the light because this is anti-American. There's no reason why we should be subsidizing terrorism.
Congressman, once the people know what's happening, then you're going to see a startling change. But they are burying it. The Democratic Party, they better cooperate because the Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee have a responsibility to act on information that you've assembled that shows, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the only reason that Beijing would do this is to weaken the U.S. government. That's it. That's what they want to do, correct?
It's exactly their whole purpose is to create chaos, make the United States weaker. We are going to continue to use every tool in the toolbox to go after these 501c3s, especially the People's Forum. And if they don't provide the documentations that we've asked, We'll use subpoena. We'll do it all.
But what I'm worried about, Congressman, is no one knows about the story because the left-wing media blacks it out. Right-wing media isn't even picking it up. They will now. After your interview with me now, it'll get out. So Besson sits on it. IRS commissioner sits on it. Everybody's got to start to mobilize because we have 2 dead people now. We have an insurgency in a state, all right, not seen since the Civil War. So now this story becomes urgent. You have to get the information to the American people. Once you do that, the American people will put the pressure on the politicians and they'll have to do something. That's how it works. You know that.
Bill, I appreciate your hard work in helping get this message out and the information out, because I totally agree with you. The American people, they deserve to know. They need to know. We have to stop this in the United States.
All right. You're doing good work, Congressman. Once you meet with the IRS guy, I hope you come back, let us know. And Besson, we're going to contact him ourselves. All right. So we'll put a call into him today about this issue. And we'll light a fire at the Treasury. And hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks, we'll get this whole thing out so everybody understands what it is. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman. That's the way we have to operate here because the press is so dishonest, they're not going to get it out. I'll get it out. Okay? And we got it out on Hannity's radio program today. We're lighting fires. But this, I don't even know about this before the Minnesota thing. Joining us now from Washington, D.C., and we're very pleased to have her, Tricia McLaughlin, who is the Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. So you're pretty busy these days, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
You know what we're doing here, right?
I'm sorry, I think the audio is cutting out.
All right, you know what we're doing on this program. We are reporting on the insurrection out of Minneapolis and Minnesota, and then we are extending it to places like Philadelphia and Boston to show the American people that this is not an organic protest. This is a very well organized and funded protest to undermine American security. That's what our goal is. Now, the reason what I want to talk to you about is specifics. All right, I want to walk through what's happening right now. So, the Border Patrol agents that were involved in the Preddy shooting have been reassigned. Is that correct?
They have not been reassigned. They're on administrative leave. They have been since Saturday. That's just standard protocol, Bill. I know the media is really blowing this up to be something that it's not, but that's just standard protocol after any use of force.
Right, and every police agency does that, not just Homeland Security, every police agency. Who is investigating the shooting right now? Is the FBI involved?
The FBI is involved, Bill. Homeland Security investigators are taking lead on this. FBI's support, as well as ATF and other agencies, are playing supporting roles. And then there is a separate investigation by CBP internally. Okay.
So the FBI is not the lead agency under the Justice Department guidelines. It is ICE. And they are assisting, the FBI is assisting. That's where we are now. That could change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an active investigation. People are actively being interviewed as we speak. We know that there's body camera footage from at least 4 of the officers who are on the ground. I know that's actively being reviewed, but these are ongoing and things could change every day.
All right. What is your impression? And because you are as close to this case as any human being in the world, what is your impression of what happened last Saturday with Mr. Preddy?
Well, I do want to let the investigation play out. And I will say at the beginning, when initial statements were made, it was from a very chaotic scene on the ground. And that's where we were getting our information from, was CBP officers on the ground. But what I can say, and what I think all Americans who watched the footage can see, is that there is an individual. He is armed, and he was had a physical altercation with law enforcement. He was also obstructing the course of a federal investigation, which is a federal crime. I've heard, of course, people on on the right and on the left saying, this individual, he had the right to conceal carry. And of course he does. That's not what anyone is contesting. What we are contesting is the fact that this individual, while armed, was committing a federal crime, obstructing our law enforcement officers. That's a felony. And unfortunately, when that's happening, if you're breaking federal law, especially when armed, that's not only dangerous, but it become deadly.
Okay, that's a rational explanation. There's no doubt about it. What isn't rational, though, is the jump point where your boss, Kristi Noem, came out and called the guy a terrorist. Now, I assume that's never going to happen again, because that just exacerbates everything. And as you said, you don't want to insert yourself in the investigation. But the same standard has to be held for Ms. Noem, correct?
Well, of course, Bill, we want to give the American people accurate information in a swift manner. I'll reiterate the fact that we're getting information from on the ground at a very chaotic scene from our CBP officers. And so, of course, our first and foremost, we want to give accurate information. And that's what we're going to do going forward.
Okay,
that's
but it would help
why an investigation is so imperative.
Tricia, I'm looking out for you. It'd help your life if the brass wouldn't come out and say the guy's a terrorist 10 minutes after the shooting. So I hope, and I know what's going to happen, you guys are just going to bring that down a little bit, because that's what the media grabs. The media hates you. You know that. I mean,
well, of course they hate us, but Bill, I do think one thing that's very important to note here is that we have seen a highly coordinated campaign of violence against our law enforcement on the ground there in Minneapolis. You've made note of it in your earlier comments. We've seen a 1,000% increase in assaults against our officers. They're having cars being used as deadly weapons against them. They're being shot at with fireworks. They're being spit on. Where they're staying at night is being targeted. These hotels, I mean, you've seen the footage of the destruction at these hotels. And just until now, we weren't getting any backup from local law enforcement on the ground. And so that's why they surged our federal resources in the first place. I think that it's really important for viewers and listeners to know that that's what the environment is for our CBP and ICE officers.
Everybody watching this program, Ms. McLaughlin, knows that. It will change. Are you going to get protection from the Minneapolis Police Department going forward, as the law states you should have? Do you believe that will change now?
Well, I will say it looked like Governor Walz and President Trump had a productive conversation.
Yeah, but we don't know what that was. And Fry is backing off all over the place today, as you probably have heard. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. Do you expect next time that your agents are in danger, the Minneapolis police to come and help?
Well, what Mayor Fry said this morning certainly was not a step in the right direction.
No.
I will say one bright spot, Bill, is what we saw the other night when a hotel that our ICE and CBP officers were staying at that was being targeted by these anarchists, and they started destroying the property and trespassing into that hotel. Incredibly violent individuals and behavior, and state and local law enforcement did step in that single occasion and start making arrests.
That wasn't Minneapolis. That was Maplewood. Totally different police department.
Sure, outside of that exact jurisdiction. You're correct on that, sir. But what I'm saying is we want to see more of that state and local cooperation.
Sure.
That's why we're there in the first place.
All right,
because we don't have it.
Final question. I don't know whether you know, but if you do, I hope you will tell my audience, which numbers in the tens of millions now because of YouTube. Subpoenas have been issued for Walz and Fry. They're going to have to come in and testify. They, in my opinion, are very close to, they could be indicted for subversion, for rebellion. Many laws, and you know the laws, we've cited them here. Do you know how that investigation is progressing against those two men?
I cannot speak for the Department of Justice. I can only speak for Homeland Security investigators on the ground.
Okay. All right. I'll take you at your word. We're working with the FBI to get some clarity on that, because this will never stop unless the federal government holds these insurrectionists responsible. Can't hold the press responsible but they're a huge part of the problem. Do you understand? You've been in this job, less than a year now. So I'm sure,
over a year, since January 20th.
right. So do you understand why the media is so irresponsible in this country? I'm just as somebody who's been in it for 51 years, I get staggered every day about what's happening. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think that they have an agenda, and I think that part of that agenda, they want illegal aliens to be in this country. I mean, for example, Bill, just a couple for your audience. I think that this is important because you will never hear this from the mainstream media. Who did DHS law enforcement arrest yesterday in Minneapolis? A criminal illegal alien from Laos convicted of homicide. Another one from Laos convicted of rape and sexual assault. A man from Vietnam convicted for sexual assault and failure to register as a sex offender. Those are just 3 individuals that we arrested yesterday in Minneapolis. And yet you are not going to hear that anywhere in the mainstream media. If you go to CNN, you go to NBC, you go to CBS, you name it, you won't read it.
But the more important story is that Fry was protecting him, those people. Fry was protecting him.
Yes, and these are the individuals we're trying to get out of the country, and yet you have rioters, you have agitators who are emboldened by Walls, they're emboldened by Fry, and that's why we have to be on the ground and have a presence that we do there in Minneapolis.
All right, is the president going to stay at the 3,000 level?
I can't get ahead of the president. Tom Homan's on the ground now there, and he'll make those operational decisions.
All right, we'll talk to Tom. Tricia, thanks very much for coming on the program. Very important, and I hope we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
So, wrapping all this up, you know, it's a serious, serious attack on the federal government of the United States, both in and out. And Donald Trump's got to solve it. It's right up there now. Got to solve it.